topic that I'm sure all of you are pretty tired of hearing about. The rumors of fraud and bad inventory in the online advertising ecosystem. I personally have been dealing with this issue for almost 10 years. Right Media, when we put together the first exchange, there were a lot of things out there in the world that we'd never seen before. Lots of different ways of putting ads on pages, pages on ads, ads on ads, ads beneath ads. It was crazy. And so we had to build techniques and technologies to figure out what was legit and what wasn't. And so, when we sold that business to Yahoo and started AppNexus, Mike Nolet and I said, we're going to build a platform that has all the protections necessary to make sure that, first and foremost, we don't mess with grandma's computer. We'll protect websites from ads that could have any kind of malicious actions that would mess up the computer. Our second thought was, how can we make sure that we never put money into sites or into content providers that aren't really very good? So for instance, a year and a half ago, we announced a stand against piracy, that we would no longer run ads or allow our partners to run ads on sites that have pirated content. And while that was not a common stance in the industry, we thought it was an extremely important thing to do, aligned with our new tagline, in fact, about powering the advertising that powers the internet. Really, it's about powering the advertising to create a better internet. And that's something we really hold dear. So here to talk about this, we're going to bring out a couple of the AppNexus leaders who work on this day in and day out. Preethy, Vaidyanathan, I think I got that right, is a product manager we hired. And one of the things we like to do to new product managers is give them very daunting tasks. So when she started, we said, oh, by the way, why don't you start working on the whole fraud and quality thing? And not knowing any better, she said, sure. And so 6 months later, she's on stage at Summit. And it's our dirty trick to get everyone on Summit so we don't have to do it ourselves. And I'm also going to bring out Geir Magnusson, who runs engineering at AppNexus. And the reason he's here is because he's one of those people who, once he picks up a thread, he can't let it go. We found one interesting botnet thing and said, hey, Geir, could you dig into this? And 3 days later, he hadn't slept. It was a Sunday afternoon. He's like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what I found. And I said, OK, Geir, I think this should be something you start focusing on. Not that I could have stopped him. So here, hopefully, is our inventory fraud and quality team, Geir and Preethy.
Good morning. Welcome to the Attacking the Quality session here at AppNexus Summit. My name's Geir Magnusson, Jr. As Brian said, I'm a VP of Engineering at AppNexus and responsible for a few areas, including the fraud and quality engineering area. I come to AppNexus from a mobile publisher and have a bit of experience in the e-commerce fraud space from work I did at Gilt Group, if you're familiar with that e-tailer here in New York. And I'm really excited to be at AppNexus, and I know that we need to provide assurance that despite the fact that we aren't Canadian, we don't smoke crack either.
Hey everyone, my name is Preethy Vaidyanathan, and I'm the product lead for quality. My quick background is I managed display and search advertising products across multiple startups. And I also did web security for McAfee, which is the second largest security company. So I'm actually very excited to be at AppNexus managing quality because it gets to combine both my backgrounds on internet advertising and internet security.
As Brian said, we've had a long-standing position that AppNexus has a zero-tolerance policy for invalid content on the platform. And this was true the day he said it. It's true to today, and it's going to be true into the future.
So what is invalid activity, right? And why does it exist? So as we grow more and more successful in online advertising, there's success, there's growth, it also becomes a ground for bad actors to make the quick buck, right? And if you look at the mainstream press, there's a lot of discussion about invalid activity. And if you look at some of the words, we actually did a quick word cloud exercise, and we looked at the top words used. So words used are suspicious, problem, fraud, questionable, whack-a-mole. And it's not just about these words, right? There's a lot of debate about who's impacted, who's responsible, what is the impact. And so here today, for the next few minutes, what we want to focus on is how at AppNexus we define invalid activity, and also how we're approaching to fight this problem.
A lot of the words that we talked about are scary, right? Fraud. Whack-a-mole may be scary to somebody. It's not very precise. At AppNexus, we're in the center of all this. We have to deal with everything you just saw and more, right? We serve both sides, the buy side, the sell side, have technical partners. In the work that we do in stopping invalid traffic, we've articulated and identified 7 distinct categories of invalid traffic. And what we'd like to do now is walk through quickly description of each, right, to give you a better sense of what we're talking about. So the first 2 are actually related. They go under the very scary name of bot. That's a bot. It's large, it's metal, it has pointy fingers. The more accurate term for this is the non-human generated traffic. And this is where computers are set up for the sole purpose of sending page impression traffic and clicks without any humans being involved. The simplest cases are machines that are set up specifically for this purpose. The more complicated cases are what is commonly termed botnets, where malware, viruses, or some other mechanism is somehow implanted on sort of innocent users' computers, residential machines, work machines, desktops, and that has a coordinated effort by those machines to generate traffic for the sole purpose of creating ad impressions. Kind of self-explanatory, hidden ads is another kind of invalid traffic, and this is where a publisher will put lots and lots of ads on a page, but you don't see them, right? The sort of users don't like when they see lots of ads, but a publisher could put more ads to get more revenue per page impression. And here's an example of a page that we found using some of our tools that has 219 ads, but all of them are out of view. They're either stacked up, they're either outside of the viewing range of the browser, or some other way that's hidden from you. Another common one is misrepresentation of the source or misrepresentation of the domain. There's many ways this happens. There's many ways that this happens. But the purpose of this, of course, is for a publisher to represent to the market an impression that is more valuable than it really is, right?
The 5th category is what we think of as no quality, right? The way we define no quality is when a site is just set up to garner ad impression, right? There's really no additional value from this site. So if you look at this site, all you have is a list of ads. So other than having a lot of impressions on the page, there's really no additional value there. The 6th category what we think about is malicious ad injection. This is when, without user consent, without publisher consent, through an application or through creative injection, ads are placed, ads are modified on publisher page, overlaid on publisher pages. And that's what we call malicious ad injection. The final category is what we call policy violating content. So these include things like porn, hate speech, gambling, piracy. We're not showing an example of porn. You guys know it when you see it. But what you do have is a site where it's streaming movies illegally. So copyright infringement site. So when we look at the 7 categories of invalid traffic in summary, we're seeing sites that fall under these categories. A lot of times we see sites that fall under multiple of these categories. And the reason why we did this exercise is first we defined the scope of the problem, right? It isn't a general term anymore. It's a very specific definition. The second exercise is by defining these categories and definitions, we can now create a framework to detect and block this invalid traffic.
one of the things to consider about this problem is that, and we use this cute little bomb or rocket or whatever it is, we're in an arms race, effectively, right? That we come to work every day, we go to meetings, we design, we innovate, we're passionate about what we do, but, and that's to block invalid traffic. But at the same time, we imagine that around the world there are people similar to us that they come to work every day, they're smart, they're dedicated, and they're working to create invalid traffic. It's a big business. And it's a constant moving target for us, because as we block one kind of attack vector, they'll create a new one. So at AppNexus, in the last 6 months, we've rethought a little bit about how we're going to be approaching the problem. And building on what we've done before, we've created dedicated engineering and product teams whose sole job is to focus on this problem. We're investing in our technology. We have real-time systems that detect and eliminate this traffic before it reaches the marketplace. And we also have offline or background systems or sort of post-auction systems that through our big data infrastructure help us detect invalid traffic that's harder to detect in real time, or new attacks so we can continually upgrade our real-time systems. We're also heavily invested in process and in looking at our process. We have a team of auditors and the tools that they use to do domain auditing. And we're also looking at other business processes that we have to make sure that we are in the best position possible, that if we need to take enforcement action, the relationships we have with all of our customers and partners is such that we can do so. A question that comes up is really who gets hurt by this, right? I think as an industry, we all get hurt by this. That with this perception that there's problems in this area, it's got to be putting some back pressure on bringing spend to the marketplace, right? It hurts you if you're a buyer or seller. If it's a buyer, it's fairly obvious. You don't want to be buying traffic that will never sort of help you reach your campaign goals because a computer is actually doing it. If you're a seller, it's a little more subtle, but if you're, say, a network and you have one or two bad actors in your network, it's kind of guilt by association or reputational damage by association. I mean, it's not fair, but it's what happens. And then if you think about what AppNexus has with it is, first of all, we have a reputational problem, right? We don't want this to hurt our reputation, but just as importantly, we have a business problem with this, because it's believed that entities like AppNexus turn a blind eye and make money from this kind of traffic, and the truth is that we don't. That the CPMs, or the rev share that we get from the CPMs from this crap, for lack of a better word, that's a technical term, by the way, is lower than our cost of goods, right? That it actually costs us money to deliver and process this traffic. So this stuff is no good for anyone. So with that, how are we doing?
So these are some of our Q3 stats. So 28% of domains audited are rejected from being platform standard. So any domain that wants to be a platform standard needs to go through this audit process, right? And almost a third of them are rejected for not meeting our standard. It's not, and it's not just about AppNexus Direct, right? Any inventory coming from any source that flows through AppNexus platform, all the detection techniques that Geir talked about, all of them are enforced, right? We want to stop invalid traffic, not just direct on AppNexus platform, but any inventory flowing through AppNexus platform. So I want to talk about two quick highlights here. 20 billion impressions. That's the amount of undeclared toolbar impressions that we blocked. Across all the other invalid categories, in total, we blocked 64 billion impressions across non-human traffic, click fraud, misrepresentation, and hidden and poor quality ads. So to kind of put this in context, right? It's 900 million impressions that are blocked every day. So that's the stat from Q3. So I want to say that again. 900 million. So that's close to 1 billion impressions that we blocked before even it gets to the auction. And these are Q3 stats. We're continuing to invest. We're continuing to improve. We want to make the platform better, the ecosystem better, and meet our client needs.
So what's the takeaway? I hope we've convinced you in the last few minutes that we have a problem together, right? This is a big problem, and it's not going to stop. You sometimes think, why do we have this problem? And it reminds me of I guess it's the urban legend about the great American bank robber, Willie Sutton, who at the end of his life was asked, why did you do it? Why did you rob the banks? And the answer is simple, right? It's because that's where the money is. And we're where the money is now, right? On the AppNexus platform alone, we're approaching a $1 billion spend per year, right? There's real money here, and it's going to bring the people that want to take some of it. AppNexus is committed to stopping this invalid traffic. We're investing in our people, our processes, our technology, right? The question then remains, what can you do? First, be aware of this. Be aware that it's a complicated problem and it's a prevalent problem. Second, we've made for you, and you might find it in your folder if you haven't already, what we're calling the AppNexus Zero Tolerance Card. It's a little cheat sheet for you to remember these 7 types of invalid traffic, right? Use it. As you grow your business and when you work with third parties and other partners, ask them if you're going to be protected from all 7 types of the invalid traffic. And remember that when you work on AppNexus and on the AppNexus platform, you will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you.